This is an open letter to Mr. Alda, and a few people that I've noticed believe that MASH, the TV series MASH, was a anti-war policy protest piece series, TV series, and in general they thought it's a anti policies of Uncle Sam's managers that had adopted war as a policy. Here's the thing, folks, and these folks actually think that MASH was a hit job on war policy and it was anti-war and all of that. Here's the thing, folks. Mr. Alda, with all due respect, I like you. You seem, I don't know you, but the the personalities that you portray in MASH, Hawkeye, me and most other people are fans of. So this is not a direct, criticism of you as such, but MASH was not anti-war, and you probably it flew over your head. The fact that it's not anti-war and it's not a criticism of war, it probably flew your head over your head, or else why would you, commit to it? Anyway, here's the thing. Folks, if you want an anti-war piece, you watch Apocalypse Now. You see, and when you say this is, I want to watch some anti-war program, movie, TV series, a truly anti-war piece of entertainment or is first, it has a despicable environment. It shows a despicable environment with despicable people committing despicable acts. As such, Apocalypse Now, or movies, very few movies that are similar to Apocalypse Now, are anti-war movies. These are movies that actually show you the carnage, the bloodshed, the violence, the craziness that is involved, the madness that is involved in war. And you watch and you learn, and you really don't want to watch it for a second time. I myself had like Apocalypse Now, but I've only been able to watch it a couple of times. I don't have the stomach for it. And that's what you want an anti-war piece to be about. It goes without saying that you can't make a series, TV series, anti-war TV series similar to Apocalypse Now in US, because the government is not going to go for it. You start right now, you start making an anti-war series like Apocalypse Now about Syria, you think it's gonna go down well? The whole apparatus of the government, the whole apparatus of military-industrial complex is not going to let it fly. An anti-war series, truly anti-war series, about the wars that are going right now, which involves Uncle Sam's, military forces. It's about Syria, about Iraq, about Somalia, about Chad, about Sudan, about about Taiwan, about Ukraine. Right now, you think you're gonna get an anti-war TV series about Ukraine? In anywhere in NATO countries, forget about in North America, in anywhere in NATO countries. No, they're not going to let it fly. And this is the question comes up as they keep saying free speech, free speech, free speech, but in actual fact, and you also have mentioned this, my fans of MASH, you have also mentioned this, that the censors, they had to make MASH the way they made MASH because they had to, they had to skip the censors. They had to somehow fool the censors, the government censors. But then the question arises that if you have censors who proclaim free speech and free speech and free speech and freedom and free speech, if you have censors, and you know you have censors from the CIA, from the FBI, from the government, if you have censors and North Korea has the censors, then what the fuck is the difference? If you have your own censors and they have their own censors, then what are you fighting for? I thought you're fighting for freedom. When you say we are fighting for freedom, that means we already have freedom. And the idea of these fights right now in Korea and in Taiwan, is in Ukraine, is sort of like, okay, we have freedom, we want to help them to get freedom. Well, if you can't criticize those wars because of censors, then you don't have freedom either. Then what the fuck are you trying to help them achieve if you don't have it yourself? This is where the question comes about, the answer comes about, that it's not the freedom that you're fighting for, it's influence that you're fighting for. We want influence over there, so we are fighting over there to get influence on the ground, to subdue the locals, so we can have influence over them. This is all goes back to Korea was a colonial war. Vietnam was a colonial war. They changed the facade of it from a colonial war to an anti-communist war. That was just a change in facade. The French were fighting the Vietnamese, the French pinkskins were fighting a colonial war against the Vietnamese pinkskins long before the Americans got involved. And they called it what it was a colonial war. They were trying to subdue the locals, to have influence over them, to tell them what to do. And what happened was they got tired, they didn't have the resources. Especially after World War II, they handed it over to Uncle Sam's managers, and Uncle Sam's managers went to war. It's just that Uncle Sam doesn't say they do colonialism. They don't like to admit it. Uncle Sam's managers don't want to admit that they do colonialism all the time, even now. So they change the facade of it, and they say, no, this is not a colonial war. We are, trying to set them free. We are trying to, it's an anti-communist. Well, as I explained in another video, this communism thing is not something that people actually want to have in their own countries. But when they're under pressure, when there's a colonial war being imposed on them by an outside power, and they are under pressure and they're under blockade, economic blockade, and they're under naval blockade, and they can't do trade properly, then the natives have to resort to communist measures. What are communist measures? Equal distribution of little resources that they have, so everybody just gets a little, so nobody dies of lack of resources. That's the communism they're practicing, because they're forced to practice communism, because they're under blockade. When you're under sanctions, economic sanctions and economic blockade, sea blockade and land blockade and economic blockade and banking blockade. You have to try to, distribute what little resources you come by between your population equally so nobody dies of hunger. You can't have capitalism under blockade, because then a few people stay alive who get a lot of resources and many people die. That's capitalism under blockade, under sanctions. So my point is this, folks, MASH was not anti-war. For the simple fact that, to me, MASH was, there was another series called Love Boat. MASH was Love Boat under tents. MASH was Love boat under tents. You actually don't see much blood and gore. You don't actually experience a lot of violence in MASH. You don't see a lot of violence. You don't watch a lot of blood and gore. All the surgeries are done without showing anything to the camera. It's very antiseptic, MASH. And frankly, this is how you know MASH was not an anti-war piece. After watching MASH, a few episodes of MASH, I would have loved to be part of MASH unit. I personally, I was I don't know, 20 something, 18 something, 14 something. Why? Because it seemed fun. It seemed fun. You're living in tents, which every man loves to, loves to experience the outdoors. That's why people go camping. You're living under tents with your buddies, and you play practical jokes, and you have fun, and you chase a lot of pussy, and there are nice girls there, and there is just this juvenile environment that every man would give his right hand for. Yes, at all times the actors in MASH, the characters in MASH, proclaimed that they didn't like to be there, that it was dirty, and the surrounding was primitive, and they didn't have good sanitation, and it was dirty, and all of that. But that's it, every young man's dream, wet dream of being in such an environment as MASH. Being able to, have fun all day, joke around, practical jokes, regular jokes, good banter with friends, and then, dating these gorgeous nurses at night. And what was there not to like about MASH? The environment that they created for you was inviting. It wasn't repulsive. That's why I'm saying MASH was not an anti-war piece. It wasn't repulsive. War is a repulsive scenario. War is a repulsive setting. It's blood and gore and violence and things that you don't want to experience a second time. MASH was just Boy Scout camps with girls, with liquor, as much as you can drink, because they made their own liquor. Mr. Hawkeye and whoever his sidekick was making their own liquor. They were chasing pussy, making their own liquor and drinking their own liquor, and joking around all day long, practical jokes and regular jokes and interesting banter the whole time. Yes, they kept on, from time to time they complained how frustrated they are, where they are, and that war is bad, but that was all, part of the banter. But the environment of MASH was inviting for every young person. Even, women, it's like young women don't mind being chased around by young doctors. So the whole thing that MASH was anti-war, fuck you. No, it wasn't. It said it was, but in they say don't do. Nobody does as they're told, but people do as they see being done. It's like, don't tell me what to do, show me what to do. And what MASH was showing was all fun. There was nothing dislikable in MASH. Everything was likable. Lovely people, lovely relationships, lovely interactions, lovely surrounding, living in a camp living under tents like Boy Scouts. That's a wet dream of every young man, to live in a setting that was very similar to his younger days as a Boy Scout. So this idea that MASH was anti-war is bullshit. And then you zoom in on characters and you see that in reality the only character in MASH that was anti-war was Klinger, because he was the one who was basically saying that I don't want to be here, period. I'm even willing to go as far as pretend that I'm crazy because I don't want to be here. Like Muhammad Ali Clay, who said, I'd rather go to jail than go to Vietnam and kill other people that I don't have a beef with. That was the point. But how did they, and then this one really objective person who had who really objected to the war, how was this person portrayed? First, he was Lebanese. He wasn't a real American. He was Lebanese. He wasn't. Second, he was not white. He was brown, a brown person. Third, he was drawn as a cowardly cross-dresser with hairy legs. And six, he was basically saying that I am crazy. So a crazy, cowardly cross-dresser with hairy legs, who's not American and is the only brown skin in the bunch, was anti-war and didn't want to be there. Does that seem to you that an anti-war message? Didn't really want it to. The other people complained. And in reality, when Hawkeye complained, or other people, other drafted doctors complained, first of all, the regular military never complained. You didn't hear Hot Lips Houlihan or the colonel or anybody, regular army or any of those sergeants and other ones complain of being there. This is what they do. This is what they signed up for, and they believe, yes, we gotta go kick some ass, some yellow skin ass on the other side of the fucking planet who didn't do us any wrong. But anyway, that's the regular army. These drafted doctors, all they didn't complain of why are we slaughtering these locals here. I mean, if they think communism is the way they want to go, let them go. If they're successful, fine. If communism is really a bad form of economy, it will fall on its own. It's not to us to fight a form of economy. And as I said, as soon as if you right now in 2022, if sanctions are lifted against North Korea, if embargoes are lifted against North Korea, and North Korea is treated like South Korea, North Korea will no longer be communist. And you know how I know? I know that because China has stopped being communist for decades now, because the Nixon administration took off the embargoes and sanctions against China and allowed them to export to wherever they wanted and build. No sanctions, no embargoes against China. And what happened? China is right now is only communist by name. Yeah, the higher administration they proclaim communism, but in the streets, everything is capitalist. on the ground, everything is capitalist. Yes, the ruling class are a bunch of intellectuals who proclaim communism, which I don't think is a bad thing. The ruling class should be intellectuals. You shouldn't, have this kind of elections that, the ruling, the highest person in the land is, chosen from, a background of acting, like Mr. Trump was in TV, or a background in like Reagan was an actor. An ex-actor becomes the head of the most powerful army in the world. An ex-actor, a TV presenter, a showman. Sometimes that person becomes is a a failed business person, like Mr. George W. Bush. It's sort of like actually it makes sense to me that have a group of intellectuals running the country, the executive branch, at least a group of intellectuals, as it is in China. They have a group like 7 to 9. I don't know how many are, 5, 7, 9. I don't know how many they are, but it's a group of intellectuals, and their job is intellectual. Is intellect. Their persona is all intellect. They read and they write, and they unfortunately, half the presidents of the United States recently have had difficulty reading. Didn't like to read. And they proclaim it themselves. George W. Bush said, I don't like reading. Mr. Trump said, read as little as possible, apparently. It's sort of like you can't, the highest executive position in a land, and the person is not intellectual? Are you serious? Doesn't like intellectual means liking to think and analyze. If you give the reign of power to people who don't like to think and analyze, you're not going to get good results. Period. You are not going to get good results. Anyway, I fall off the subject. The point is this: the only and really anti-war personality character in MASH was Klingon, and that he was portrayed as a foreigner, as a brown skin, not truly American, with hairy legs, and as a crazy transvestite. I mean, you can't go worse than that. I mean, you couldn't. And you're telling me this was an anti-war piece? MASH was anti-war? No, it wasn't. When you portray the only person who really protesting the war and wants to go home, not as Muhammad Ali Clay, a respectable person of some stature, but you're portraying that truly objective person as a crazy transvestite in skirts and hairy legs who's crazy, and who's also a foreigner, not a true American, with a brown skin, not pink. No, it wasn't an anti-war piece. MASH was an anti-war piece. Here's the thing, folks. The setting was not anti-war. The people were extremely pleasant, lovely, likable people who were the characters. I don't know if the people are, but the characters that were presented in the show were lovely people. Likable, lovely people in a lovely setting, having, civilized time. That's not how war is. That's not how an anti-war piece should portray people involved in war. And if you look at it, how was the people outside of this MASH unit were portrayed? The Koreans were portrayed as mumbling idiots in need of help all the time. Mumbling idiots in need of help. And how was generally MASH portrayed? If you want to describe MASH in one character, that would be Father Mulcahy, the priest of the unit, who was just all love, all pink skin love. And so you have this giving and lovely person of character of Father McKay. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, okay, yeah, this is it. It's like a pink skin here full of love trying to help the bumbling idiot locals. Help. The bumbling idiot and that's how the Koreans were described in MASH. Bumbling idiot locals. And how were the Chinese described? Bumbling, crazy, shouting, shooting idiots. That's how the Chinese were described in MASH. Do you still think that's a propaganda, anti-war piece? No, of course it wasn't. MASH was a propaganda piece for war. When you keep describing your opponents as bumbling, idiot, crazy, shitty people who are shouting and shooting and not reasonable at all, and you're describing your own people as, portraying your own people as all love and all giving and all likable and all fun and all, and then the only one on your side who's against this whole war business is portrayed as a crazy cross-dresser. That's not really anti-war. This is that MASH was propaganda for war. Although verbally sometimes people complain, but it was for war. Because the characters, the ones who were fighting the war, were all lovely. The opponents were all mad and crazy and bumbling and in need of help. Look at it this way, my friend Alda. Look at it this way. If you set a comedy, if tomorrow you come up with the idea of a comedy, serious, set in a slaughterhouse, a comedy series set in a slaughterhouse in which the viewers, the audience, don't see the slaughtering of it. What the viewers see is an office-like environment, much like, you know, a lot of tents in MASH, an office-like environment, in which, you know, people interact, and they're lovely people working in these offices. They're lovely, and they have very pleasant interactions with each other. They play jokes. Same setting as MASH, but in an office-like environment, which is inside a slaughterhouse. And at the same time, they have medics available in this office-type environment who can deal with humans who get injured while they're dealing with these animals that are brought in for slaughter. I can imagine that you get a lot of you get a lot of human injuries in the slaughterhouse, because, you know, they're dealing with large animals, bulls who are large and violent. Obviously they're going to be violent as they're about to get killed. So I imagine you get a lot of injuries. People get injured. Employees of slaughterhouses, those who are in direct contact with animals, probably get a lot of injuries. So imagine that this comedy series is set in this office type environment with good people, humorous people, good relationship with each other, a lot of girl-boy interactions, a lot of, you know, pussy chasing. And then you have, you know, and then they have a group of medics here who have to deal with the humans who get injured, dealing with these animals that are coming in for slaughters. And these injured people come in, and these medics take care of them, and also those injuries those injuries are also not shown on camera. You know, it's portrayed that there is the medics are taking care of those injuries, but of the people, but even those are not shown on camera. Do you feel? Does anybody feel that this comedy in this slaughterhouse is in any way objecting to the whole idea of the slaughterhouse? No, it's not. Imagine that now, there is only the cleaner there, one of the lowly, busboys there, who's also crazy and cross-dresser, and he's the only one who doesn't want to work there, but apparently he has no choice. That's the only job that he could find. Klinger, like persona, character. This show is not going to be about, criticizing slaughterhouses. In fact, if anything, if you show it in a nice enough light with humor and kindness between the humans, with humor and kindness and jokes and practical jokes and good camaraderie between the humans that are working in this office, this is not going to be a movie about, and this is not going to be a TV series of criticizing slaughterhouses. In fact, this is a TV series about promoting slaughterhouses, because it's showing the audience how human the employees of these slaughterhouses are, how nice they are, how kind they are, how beautiful they are, how normal they are, how... End of story. It's a slaughterhouse, but you're showing how kind the people who are working there are, how nice they are. End of story. A comedy series based on an office employees inside the slaughterhouse is exactly like MASH. A comedy series about a lovely, kind group of pink skins in the middle of the war theater. And the Koreans and the Chinese were given as much airtime in MASH as I believe the animals are given airtime in a comedy series in a slaughterhouse. Very little. And if they're shown, they're not shown as intelligent creatures or sentient creatures. The animals that are coming for slaughter, they're not shown as sentient creatures. They're shown exactly as the Chinese and the Koreans were shown in MASH. Bumbling idiots who deserve nothing but the slaughterhouse. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Alan Alda. Maybe even you were under the impression that when you took the job, maybe you were also under the impression that it's an anti-war piece, propaganda piece, but it was anything but. MASH was creating a MASH type of fictitious environment was inviting to both men and women to join the war, because it seemed to be a very pleasant environment to get into, to be in, full of love and camaraderie and a lot of pussy. So I had to say something because I really enjoyed MASH myself as a comedy piece. When I watched it when I was younger. So, but let's not forget that it wasn't anti-war. By no means. It was, in fact, it was advertisement for young people to join war. And I noticed that, but it really clicked for me after you posted the picture of you and Prince Charles. And that's when it clicked for me that, I was right. this was sanctioned by the ruling class of the Pinkskins. This show was sanctioned, uh, was, I don't know if the sanction is the right word here, but this show was applauded by the Pinkskin establishment, Pinkskin ruling class in, you know, North America, as well as obviously in England and Europe, because many of them participated in Korean War. It was a NATO war, and a question comes about as what are Pinkskin doing fighting the locals on the other side of the planet in a continent where it's not theirs? What are Pinkskins doing? NATO. Today, what is NATO? A collection of Pinkskin populations in North America and Europe. What is NATO doing fighting wars in Africa, in Middle East, in East Asia, Latin America? What is this business of one race that is primarily home habitat is Europe? Why the Europeans and people of European descent, like you, Mr. Alan Alda, why are you all over the world fighting the locals under different pretexts? It used to be a couple of centuries ago, the pretext that they gave the locals, the local Pinkskin, the establishment of a Pinkskin, told the common Pinkskins that a couple of centuries ago, they told them that we have to go over there and fight them to civilize them. Then they told them that we have to go fight them on the other side of the planet to bring them Christianity. And then they told them that we have to go fight them to against communism, a form of economy. And now they're saying that the establishment, the ruling class of the Pinkskins are telling the common Pinkskins in North America and Europe that we are on the other side of the planet, on the other side of the fucking planet, to bring them democracy, a form of government that some people, some population on this planet can manage democracy. Some population cannot manage democracy. Democracy is not a fix-all, cure-all. Democracy is just a form of government that even has worked sometimes for you, and in many cases even hasn't even worked for you. And then tipping over all countries in Africa, like Libya, like Somalia, just tipping them over. If they have a rule of law, some kind of law, and they have an establishment and they have things are working, you just tip them over and kill the leader and have bloodshed continue, start inside for decades, until I guess the Pinkskins have to step in and bring some kind of order. It had order, we broke it, it became disorderly, now we have to put soldiers on the ground to bring it order again. How about not breaking it and letting it be? Here's the thing, my Mr. Alan Alda and my pink-skinned friends, you're not the solution. You know that old saying that Americans have and say that apparently Mr. Reagan came up with it, that government is not the solution, government is the problem. Well, you can extend that with regards to other parts of this planet. Pink-skins are not the solution. Pink-skins are the problem. If you pull all your forces back and stay within your borders, the rest of the planet will manage. They will manage. Believe me, they will manage. This pretense that we have to go over there to help, this is the problem. The pretense, the facade of we are just there to help. We can't help ourselves. We need to help people. We have to go help. We got a beating heart here. We are so lovely people. We are so caring. We need to go and help. No, you don't. No, you don't. You need to stay home. Guard your own borders, protect your own borders, and stay home. You don't need to go anywhere. They will manage somehow. They have managed without you for hundreds of thousands of years. All these, societies on planet Earth have evolved on their own. There is no need for one group of people from this side of the planet to go on the other side of the planet and tell them what kind of economy they should be having, what kind of government system they should be having, what kind of religions they should be having, what kind of civility they should be following or having. There is no need for that. They got their own kind of civility, their own kind. They got their own kind of religion, they got their own kind of economy, and they got their own kind of fucking government structure. If any of this doesn't work for them, they will change it. It doesn't work, you change it until it works. Everybody can do that. Everybody understands this. That societies evolve. They try something, it works, great. If it doesn't work, they try something else. There is no need for the pink skins to help. Just no need. Under any pretext. We are going over there to bring them freedom. Freedom? Freedom. Your own citizens are up to their eyeballs in debt. They're enslaved to the banks, to the creditors. Your own citizens, up to their eyeballs, enslaved to the creditors, because nobody pays, but everybody, all the banks are ready to extend a line of credit. You don't get cash, you get credit, and you get enslaved by credit. Nobody makes cash, the incomes are not enough, so people have to live on credit. And you are bringing them freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from freedom? So they can also be enslaved by the banks, by your banks?